Six-time Emmy Award winner and Tony Award nominee Jean Smart returns to Broadway for 12 weeks only in a world premiere play about a writer whose words are her only way out.
Call me Izzy.
Get tickets at callmeizzyplay.com.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday 7. On today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we swelter through the heatwave, meet a 1,000-year-old Peruvian mummy, and get the latest on dementia drugs. Plus, Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's resident tech guru, takes a sceptical look at the Trump phone and tells us how to pick a $100 million paycheck. Thank you very much. If you're enjoying these episodes, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 in association with Metro. Before we get started, though, it was on this day in 1675 that the Royal Greenwich Observatory was officially created by royal warrant. The building was designed by legendary architect Sir Christopher Wren, and John Fleming was appointed as the first astronomer royal. The observatory was also responsible for publishing the Nautical Almanac, which led to the Greenwich Meridian becoming the Earth's primary time zone meridian in 1884. The weekend has seen the UK sweltering in a heatwave, but it is June, so that's not surprising, is it? A heatwave officially starts when the temperature hits 27 degrees or higher for 3 days in a row, so Thursday saw Suffolk become the first official location in the UK to enter that status. Temperatures are due to remain high until Monday, with an amber weather alert issued by the Met Office, while the UK Health Security Agency has been warning about the risks involved in prolonged high temperatures. But with global warming on the horizon, will heatwaves become more common, or will we just have to get used to rising temperatures? Gemma Plumb is an operational meteorologist, and she's also the host of the For the Love of Weather podcast. She spoke to Sky News this week about the possibility of the UK regularly hitting 40-degree temperatures.
We've already seen those temperatures, but the fact that we could see them happening more often is worrying. I mean, climate change is making heat waves more intense, more frequent, more likely. The Met Office released a study today that said that the chances of temperatures in the UK exceeding 40 degrees is now over 20 times more likely than it was in 1960s. So we are seeing these hot spells becoming more frequent and intense and more likely as well.
And while it sounds nice having hot summers, the UK just isn't prepared for these prolonged hot spells, even down to things like air conditioning in offices or homes that have modern insulation which help to regulate heat levels. Mr. Grand Designs himself, Kevin McCloud, says that traditionally home builders never really considered how to design houses that could handle extreme heat.
Building control regulations have only recently started to take into account the requirements for summer cooling. It's always been a focus about insulation and winter warming, and we build these lightweight timber structures now with almost no thermal mass in them, which means that our houses new ones tend to heat up really quickly, cool down really quickly in the winter. And the trick here is to build using high thermal mass materials, solid materials, which are going to help store heat and regulate heat and humidity as well, and treat ventilation and cooling as seriously as we treat warming.
The change in temperature profile has some unexpected consequences too, with fishermen around Devon reporting a dramatic drop in the level of crabs and lobsters they're seeing in their pot. Alan Steer explained to ITV News what's going on.
This has been the problem for us lately. All these octopus. These have been getting in the pots, eating all the lobsters, eating all the crab, just doing devastation.
The eight-legged visitors appear to be leaving their traditional Mediterranean hunting grounds and instead heading to the waters off the UK coast, partly because global warming's raised sea temperatures. They're feasting on all our crab and lobster because they're able to slide into the pots on the seabed and help themselves. Alan Henderson is from New England Seafoods International, and he says it's not just the octopus invasion that worries him.
We are doing other things that are not good for the industry. The explosion of super crabbers, the other fisheries that are working in the area, bottom trawls, dredgers. Another one is probably global warming or climate change. Crab doesn't like too warm water. Donald Trump may well be the world's most indecisive man. This week alone he's been unable to decide on whether he should bomb Iran or place two massive erections of flagpoles outside the White House. But he's definitely decided that America needs a new type of phone. Oh, that's great, the Trump phone. And you know what's coming next? There's only one man we need to accidentally butt dial when it comes to tech and Trump, and that's the Smart 7's tech guru Will Guyatt. So Will, Is Donald the new Tim Cook or Tim Apple? Not in terms of genius though, more in terms of cheap Chinese labour, right?
I've not got my glasses on today, but the surname certainly looks a bit like Cook. Might have an extra C though. Well, many think the president should have been focusing on that deepening crisis between Israel and Iran, but Don's family and the president by proxy were out there slanging a brand new US mobile network and a gold Android smartphone named the Trump T1. They promised to make smartphones great again and made great play of this T1 phone being an all-American made smartphone. However, there's no evidence it actually is a US phone, and as far as mobile industry experts are concerned, the only thing they could possibly be doing in the US at the moment is sticking the monstrous T on the back of the phone or putting it into a box. Simply put, the people who make phones just like this via facilities in China for everyone else says there's absolutely zero way for the Trump organization to do this in America. As you would expect, the Trump Foundation refused to address those concerns, but in a quote to journalists reminded them that its $47.45 SIM-only deal, as Trump is both the 47th and 45th president, offered incredible value. What marketing geniuses.
Now, call me crazy, and I hesitate to say this, but could it be that Donald Trump is a bit of a grifter?
You might say that, but surely Trump Mobile will join Trump University, Trump Ice, Trump Vodka, and even Trump Steaks as some of the US's greatest business operations of the 21st century.
Yeah. Aside from Donald, what about his ex-bestie Elon? It's been another pretty bad week for him, hasn't it?
Elon's had another nightmare this week. One of his SpaceX rockets blew up on the launch pad. This was referred to as SpaceX as a major anomaly, and that would certainly be an understated way to put it, as does the often used catastrophic failure, as there was literally nothing left for them to use again. Such was the explosion. Continued failure of these rockets would be considered a bad look for anyone else, but SpaceX has been betting that its fail fast, learn fast ethos will help keep them ahead of other rivals. At least they now have these booster rockets working. They've caught them 3 times so far, and that's a real engineering feat, but it obviously needs to get more reliable. It's not all bad news for Elon this week though. In totally unconnected news, the man with one of the world's largest image-generating AI server farms has largely revealed a printout of his recent drug test results, which showed he was clear of everything. Not just the horse's favourite ketamine, but even paracetamol. Now, both of these statements about the server farm and the drug test are not connected, but they're certainly very interesting.
And a new challenge has entered the space chat, I hear.
This one feels a bit left field, but the company are already a growing player in the private jet space as well. That's the car and motor manufacturer Honda, and they're entering the space market. I'm not entirely sure what I make of it, given I've spent the last 6 months tussling with a Honda dealer in Swindon over a dodgy electric vehicle. That said, it is cool that Honda have gone from making a car called the Space Wagon to actually demonstrating a reusable space rocket. This week, the Honda R&D team in Japan landed its 6.3 metre long experimental launch vehicle after it reached an altitude of 271 metres. They're now going to push to a full space flight in 2029.
I presume it's a reasonably priced and technically sturdy rocket, but what's the big picture for Honda? What are they aiming to get out of it?
Honda are the first Japanese company to enter into the space, get it? And Toyota have said they're getting into the market too. In Honda's case, they say there's going to be a growing global market for space exploration, and given they already make motors for all kinds of vehicles, it feels like a logical expansion, particularly if they don't want to lose out to Elon Musk or even Amazon's Jeff Bezos, who owns a company that makes rockets too. Japan's government has also established a multi-billion-dollar space venture to help subsidize these private rockets, satellites, and other Japanese missions. They want to double the country's space industry to 8 trillion yen by the early 2030s, and these main market players like Honda and Toyota all want a piece of the action.
Apart from Elon, things seem to have heated up in the AI recruitment wars. Just talk me through how I'd pick up $100 million signing bonus, please. I'm quite eager.
This certainly took a lot of us by surprise and made many of us shake our heads. While seemingly unproven so far, the boss of OpenAI, Sam Altman, said in an interview that Meta's Mark Zuckerberg was in such a bluster about OpenAI's advances in the technology that they've attempted to personally tap up OpenAI's leading lights with $100 million signing on bonus to go and lead Meta's AI efforts. So far, he claims, nobody has joined the company as a result of these offers. I don't think this is sour grapes or cattiness from Sam Altman either. Meta recently invested $14 billion buying 49% of an AI startup called Scale, and many industry watchers say this is more about Meta getting access to a handful of the company's AI leaders rather than the business itself. These sums are bonkers amounts of money, but let's just focus our minds on the fact that OpenAI announced a $500 billion investment in server and AI farms this year, and that isn't bluster or one of those government announcements which counts investments they've already announced at least 3 or 4 times over, but it does show you just how much cash and hope is riding on artificial intelligence and the artificial intelligence space.
How on earth does that make any business sense?
The idea that poaching a couple of the top AI engineers and experts from OpenAI would give Meta a competitive advantage is not unusual. It's a bit like Zuckerberg buying WhatsApp or Instagram back in the day rather than building them themselves, because people scratched their heads when Zuck spent billions on those services a decade or so ago, and let's just look how central they both are now to Meta's overall business. The company has a load of cash and Zuck is determined not to be left behind, and if you can't do it yourself, why not buy your way out of the problem?
And finally, apart from insane hiring sprees, what else has Zuck been up to this week on the crucial issue of #spoilers?
In a world where the social networks have stopped taking fact-checking seriously, I'm absolutely behind this trial, which would stop people ruining the ending of that new show you're watching or the game you're playing. If you're on Threads, which, despite many people thinking is a total bust, now has more users than X worldwide on a monthly basis, you can now blur content by tapping an image or highlighting text and selecting the marked spoiler option, and other users can view this content by tapping or clicking on the spoiler. Now, this is currently a global test, but I need this feature on all social networks.
Maybe it already works on podcasts. Bruce Willis was a ghost. No, it doesn't. Thanks, Will! Still to come on the Sunday 7 in association with Metro, bad news on dementia drugs, but good news if you hate housework. There are estimated to be almost 1 million people in the UK living with dementia, and that number is projected to rise to almost 1.5 million by 2040. Dementia and related illnesses was also one of the leading causes of death in 2024, but this week saw the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence issue a ruling on 2 new breakthrough drugs that are going to disappoint a lot of people. The drugs, lecanemab and donanemab, have been proven to slow the onset of the disease, but crucially they don't reverse or totally stop it. They're also very expensive, and Professor Jonathan Benger, who's the Chief Medical Officer of NICE, says that the marginal improvement for patients just doesn't justify the cost.
The gap is large here, so even if we were to adjust the methodology, I'm afraid the gap between the benefit, which is small, modest, these drugs unfortunately do not reverse dementia, they do not provide a cure, and the cost of the medicine and the cost of administering the medicine, which requires regular hospital visits, scans and tests, including genetic testing, is very high. And the reality is that if we recommended this, it would divert very important services away from other things that we know are better value for money for the NHS.
Right. Not surprisingly, the companies manufacturing these new drugs have a different view, and Dr. Emily Pegg, who's the Chief Medical Officer for Eli Lilly, who make donanemab, says that they're prepared to appeal the decision.
The cost is obviously something that we take very seriously. It's one of the biggest decisions we make as a company, and we cost these drugs based on the value we believe they can bring to the healthcare system. The system does have a way to fund innovative medicines where there is more uncertainty about whether that cost is worth paying and the potential benefits that it can bring. We have an innovative medicines fund in this country that is a £340 million fund that was established in 2022. In the 2023-24 year, that used less than 1% of its budget.
We've all been waiting quite a while now for our personal robot assistants to arrive, and while we might have automatic vacuum cleaners or robot lawnmowers, we still don't have the dream of the robot butler who can mix us a beverage or cook us a burger whilst also doing the laundry. Elon Musk's giant robot puppets aside, there's a company called Heagon who genuinely do seem to be getting closer to a humanoid-style robot that might be able to carry out practical tasks. The prototype is called Eon, and while it moves like a 7-year-old on heelys, president of Heagon's robotics division, Arnaud Robert, says the first use case for the robot's most likely factory and industrial work.
We're seeing a labor shortage, actually in many industries, automotive, transportation and so on, where the older generation is going to retirement, the middle generation is not interested in those tasks anymore, and the younger generation for sure wants to do other things. So we definitely are focusing on industrial settings first, then we will look at hospitality, it could be hotels, it could be elderly care management facilities and so on.
Still to come on the Sunday 7 in association with Metro, we find out why your mummy's looking a bit rough and help her bear battle a bin lid.
Right after this.
6-time Emmy Award winner and Tony Award nominee Jean Smart returns to Broadway for 12 weeks only in a world premiere play about a writer whose words are her only way out.
Call me Izzy.
Get tickets at callmeizzyplay.com.
Welcome back.
I'm sure British gas workers have found some interesting things over the years as they dig up roads to lay some pipe, but they've never found anything quite like the gas workers in Peru and what they found this week. Crews were digging trenches for new pipelines in Peru's capital city Lima when they stumbled across what seems to be a 1,000-year-old mummy. The well-preserved mummy was located only a foot or so below the surface and was so well preserved she still had brown hair. Apparently the climate in Peru does lead to a natural mummification process, and there have been similar discoveries previously, but not in such a well-preserved state. Jesus Bahamonde is a local archaeologist, and he says the find included plenty of other interesting clues to the life the mummy led.
It is oriented to the west, that is, towards the sea, facing the sea. It's accompanied by a trousseau characterized by jars, bottles, canteens, plates, bowls. In some of these plates and bowls, crustacean remains, such as crabs, have been found, which also helps us understand its connection with the sea and the diet this person consumed.
In a world where devices get smarter and arguably we get dumber, there's one eternal question that plagues mankind. Are our smart speakers listening to us? Whether you've had something pop in your feed you were just talking about moments before, or your ad seems suspiciously in line with your kitchen chat, it's definitely an issue. Well, the nature of smart speakers means that they effectively always are listening, ready to spring to life when you say their name or your friend Alexa calls over for a tea. Sorry, I didn't want to set the kitchen off. And these devices are also regularly reporting data back to the provider's cloud database. So what can you do to top up your privacy and keep Alexa, the smart speaker, not your friend, out of your business? Stephen Almond is from the Information Commissioner's Office, and he had some good advice to hand out when he popped up on Good Morning Britain this week.
Ultimately, you're inviting the internet into your house. You need to be thinking about it just the same way as what you're putting on social media. You wouldn't share everything. Check the permissions for the device as you're setting it up. Deny access if there's something that you don't want to share. Make sure as well that you're denying access to hackers by setting a really strong password when you're setting up your device. And particularly if you're getting rid of your device, make sure that you delete any data that's held before you pass it on to somebody else.
Nature is a wild and wonderful thing, and when it comes to animals and their interaction with mankind, it can be hard to believe some of what you see. Take, for example, bears. We've all seen the social videos of them popping into people's houses late at night for a snack, or letting themselves into a car. Well, this week, though, saw a bear who's been in a pretty tricky situation for 2 years finally get some help. It all started in 2023 when observers of a trail camera in northern Michigan spotted a bear cub with a barrel lid stuck round its head. Presumably the bear was bin diving and ended up with a pretty dramatic neck ornament, but has managed to survive in the wild regardless. Well, this week local experts in Michigan finally tracked him down and set him free, as Michigan State Bear Specialist Cody Norton explains. This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
Hi, this is Frances from Fixable, a podcast from TED. These days, every finance leader is under pressure to save money. But you can't beat the competition just by cutting costs. To win, you need to spend smarter and move faster. You need Brex. Brex is the modern finance platform that breaks the trade-off between control and speed with intelligent corporate cards, high-yield banking, and AI-powered expense management. Join the 30,000 companies that spend smarter and move faster with Brex. Learn more at brex.com/grow.